Hey folks, this is Cami Westall with a review of Chapter 5 on the Roman Republic in your book. So we're leaving the Greeks behind for a bit and moving on to the boot of Italy. So Rome, pretty much right there in the center, kind of low shin level if you're looking at it as a leg on the left. It starts talking about how the Greeks do have influence there, as they continue to have on our life even in 2013. And another group that would have influence would be the Etruscans. Today this region is Tuscany. That's where the name the Tuscans come from the Etruscans, who seem to control the development of Rome initially with their kings before the Romans were able to get their own independence. Rome's foundations were laid by Romulus and Remus, the twins, in the year 750 BC. The story goes that they were the sons of a princess and the god of war. They ended up being left at birth down a river, and they were saved by a female wolf who nursed them. Kind of weird, but maybe happened, who knows. Weird images of this female wolf nursing them that you can find. And they grow up. Romulus and Remus settle on these hills in Rome. There are 7 hills in Rome, and Romulus built the Palatine Hill, but he actually kills his brother Remus, so Rome named for Romulus there. And so the story is a little bit far-fetched by today's standards. Maybe it happened, maybe not. But they've dated some of the earliest foundations of Rome from the architectural evidence, and it really does date back to the 750s BC. So just to get a little visual here, if we go in to look at our Palatine Hill. How do I get this thing off of here? Whee! I can't get that off. On Google Earth, not much of a hill by today's standards. You can kind of see the outline of a hill there. Let's see. Go here, see if this gives us a little view of the, not too much of the elevation, but just enough that it offered some protection. Here, minimize this thing. So lots of ancient ruins up there today. You can kind of get a hint here of how it's sort of on a hill, higher elevated than the things in the rest of the city. But the Palatine Hill is the oldest area there in historic Rome. And Rome has a strong social divide between the Patricians and the plebeians. Patricians, that ruling class, the aristocrats by birth, and they have that imperium mentioned on page 127, the power to command, or the right to command, which is where we get the word empire or emperor from. So it's only these patricians who can have that imperium, who can serve in these various offices that are mentioned, such as the Senate, which becomes key, or the dictator, a term that will change with Julius Caesar, but which is initially, as it mentions on page 128, usually a 6-month emergency position. So then it goes on to talk about some of the social conditions facing Rome. Again, there's going to be a lot of conflict between these patricians and the plebeians when the plebes realize that they don't have as many rights. So that leads to the struggle of the orders. You have the 12 tables, their legal system in there, where a lot of that made a lot of the plebeians realize from the 12 tables how limited their rights were. So the struggle struggle between the orders then will affect Roman society, just as some social conflicts affect us today. Still, despite the interior struggles they occasionally have, Rome is able to gradually take over the rest of the Italian peninsula. So there is no country of Italy, technically, until the 1860s, but the Italian peninsula here will be taken over by Rome, and as they go to war, the Romans are great engineers, one of the things we see in this chapter and chapter 6 as well. And this shows their roads, a map of the roads that they build. The phrase, all roads lead to Rome. Rome builds solid, straight roads, a network of them throughout their empire. The Romans invent cement that can be used for these roads. Some of them, are cobblestone, but still they're in working order, and we can't say the same thing for some of our roads and highways in 2013. And they make them very, very straight, like you see here, which was really advantageous if there was an insurrection or something like that happening elsewhere in the empire. You needed to get your troops, the horses, the chariots there as quickly as possible without having to go through any type of switchback that's going to delay you, risk an overturned chariot. So those straight roads were also very, very beneficial for the Romans. And so they go from taking over Italy to the rest of the Mediterranean empire. Their main enemy is going to be Carthage, which today is down in the country of Tunisia. But Carthage will be Rome's enemy in the Punic Wars, which it explains, say, how the heck did it get a name like that? It's the Phoenicians, the Carthaginians are kind of based in this Phoenician area, and the Latin for that, which they spoke in Rome, was Punic. So it deals with the location of Carthage. But Carthage has a strategic naval location. It's a great place to stop if you're traveling back and forth to reload on supplies. War breaks out first on Sicily in the First Punic War. Then we get the character of Hannibal in the Second Punic War, who makes one of the most impressive expeditions ever by taking a bunch of elephants and his soldiers on a surprise attack over the Pyrenees and through the Alps to get to Rome. Still is not able to defeat them. Rome kind of drags him back to Carthage, and he loses to Scipio Africanus at the Battle of Zama in 202 BC. And then there's a third Punic War, which just kind of finishes them off. So Scipio, whose name would then be is sometimes pronounced with a soft C as Scipio, or Scipio, will be given the title of Africanus as the one who conquered the peninsula of Africa. Then it moves on into the society of Rome, the importance of religion, importance of education, and the rhetoric. This is an image from a school situation. The teacher over there on the left teaching two students, one who has a papyrus scroll here. But the Roman Senate valued their tradition of rhetoric, or being able to speak persuasively, what the sophists used to do back in Athens. The education was, though, an important thing to them. Slavery, as war captives, as they gain more land, they're taking more slaves. Talks about the role of women, still a large arranged marriage custom that women faced, especially in the upper classes. Development of the arts during this time, again, largely from Greek models, and that Greek basis that everybody kind of wants to be like the Greeks were at this point. And then it gets back more into some of the politics. So after learning about the culture and what they valued in their family roles, the fathers, the paterfamilias, the education, the arts and literature. Once they've gained all that territory, they're ironically becoming less stable. And this will happen time to time. You've got huge employment rates, because if you brought in all the slaves, then you have laborers who aren't getting paid as much money. It mentions the situation with Tiberius and Gaius Gracchus. So Gracchus brothers. We see the tensions mounting there. Marius and Sulla, two powerful military rulers who are able to sort of take command. And then we get into this situation with the triumvirate of Pompey, who's mentioned on page 153, and Crassus, and Julius Caesar. Caesar is actually Pompey's father-in-law. Pompey is married to Julius Caesar's one daughter. And these guys are in a triumvirate, a rule of three. Rule of three is going to be semi-stable, but what's going to happen is that Crassus dies. He's killed in battle. And Pompey and Caesar are two guys with large armies devoted to them, because the soldiers are devoted not so much to the state as they are their general, who provides them with opportunities for wealth, to plunder things, for land. Caesar comes back to Rome, crosses the Rubicon River, if you've heard that phrase, chases Pompey all around, as it mentions largely on page 155. They go down to Egypt. Julius Caesar has a little fling with Cleopatra, the queen of Egypt, at that time, and Pompey will be killed in Egypt, not by Caesar, but Pompey's head is actually brought to him by some of the Egyptians. So Caesar hangs out with Cleopatra, and they do get it on a little bit down there in Egypt, and then he will return to Rome. He will be made dictator for life before he is killed, largely out of jealousy from the Senate, on the Ides of March. Ides meaning from the Latin of ides, or middle. So in the middle of March, March 15th of the year 44 BC, Caesar will be killed by the senators, including his old friend Brutus. Brutus largely viewed as a traitor, but one of the senators who resented how much power Julius Caesar was taking over the traditions of the Senate. So you watched your video on that, and on the role of Brutus there and that. But that largely talks about the importance of Cicero, and just again the rhetoric of some of these senators. But when Julius dies, it sets the stage for someone even more powerful than he was to take over Rome. So that's where chapter 5 ends.